Warren's demonstration of Writer's Workbench, and I understand, Warren, you're really tied in here to a computer over in Hayward somewhere.
Yes, we are.
And show us what Writer's Workbench does.
Okay, I think it's significant to mention, first of all, the Writer's Workbench is a feature package running on Unix System 5. And at that, we point out here that it's a relatively powerful set of tools that aid a writer in structuring and sharpening their writing talents. And I like to always point out that that's important to the reader also, because I do a lot more reading than writing on my job, and I think that's a good thing to point out. One of the things that we do here, we do many of the things that we just saw Wayne demonstrate. We have the proofreading side, and we have a prose which is going to do a stylistic analysis of the text that we have out here. I'll be very brief here. It goes over spelling, it goes over punctuation, double words, diction, many of the things you just saw, but it also looks for split infinitives, and that's one of the powerful parts of it. And we'll take a look at that. Let's just briefly jump down into the area that Wayne just left. There are 4 areas that actually do or allow the user to structure or tailor their own environment. The spelling area, there's the word choice, which is very similar to the stylistic points that he just made, and there's a sexist phrase dictionary out there that can be styled locally also. And in fact, here's a case where our text had some sexist phrase in there, manpower, and it itemized that, and then it'll go a little bit further in the next screen and actually make a recommendation that says substitute the words personnel, staff, or workers instead of manpower. Okay, and it goes on to many of the other types of words that Wayne was talking about. For example, which and that, something that we commonly misuse. I know I do a lot, and it'll make recommendations in that area. Now, the more powerful parts of Writer's Workbench software becomes a derivative of the fact that you can go out and assign a part of speech to every word in the text. And by doing that, you can actually find split infinitives. Here it found an adverb splitting the form of the verb to find, to hopefully find. And the way it does that is it goes out, as I said, and here you have an actual text that we were running on this demo, and you can see where these parts of speech have been assigned here. Here's the verb, the adverb, and the verb. Gives it a lot of powerful things that it can do. Now, in addition to what you see there, that aids in the stylistic analysis portion of this. Let's talk just briefly here. We use a couple different sets of comparative samples, and in here we're using instructional samples. You can put documentation. Lawyers may put legal type documents out. You can go down to your boss's level, as a matter of fact, and let it go out and compare. Once it's done that, it comes back and makes an evaluation based on the comparison that it just did. For example, here it said that this text, in accordance with a Kincaid readability, was written for 13th grade education level for comprehension. And if you go a little bit further down here, it says for instructional text, it should be written at a 10th grade level so that it's better understood. They go on to then make many recommendations, and I do have, just to show you, there's a fair amount of text that comes back to the writer to enable them to go through and determine how to structure that according to that scale. The important thing to say is that it does this based on the mix of simple to complex to compound complex sentences, and here you can see it said 71% of the sentences were complex, 14% were simple. The difference here is 57 and should have been closer to 28 or less than 28. So it goes into a lot of this type of analyzations.
Warren, where is something like this being used right now?
Primarily in the Bell Labs and the AT&T Western Electric locations. It's also been used in the Colorado State University. 2,500 students have gone through that, where they've overwhelmingly reported good results, and now it's being run as part of their composition courses.
It seems like it'd be a tremendous teaching tool just to get some feedback on your writing.
Definitely.
Do you think that people will become a little more dependent upon this and expect it to be very reliable and sort of say, well, since it passed the Writer's Workbench, I guess it must be...
I sure do.
Be good material.
I sure do. On top of that, I think it's important to point out that it's important in the other areas of business and professionals where you're going after a style like in journalists, where you want something to come back. You can actually go out here and do things in a passive sense. In other words, in creative writing, that's a little bit different than in the technical type writing. You might want to look for all the passive and the to-be forms of the verb. You can do that. And when you do something of that nature, you can go back and flavor it. For example, instead of saying it was thundering, you can say the thunder or lightning. The lightning flashed across the sky. Something along those lines. And you can get very, very thought-provoking words. And I might point out that...
It'll have to be brief.
Okay. The real important part of the writer's workbench is there are 27 different functions that can be run. You've only seen a very few of them here from the standpoint of the stylistic analyzation. The types of things that go out and look for abstract words, things that look for topics. There are very, very powerful things in terms of reporting in this area.
Warren, Wayne, thank you very much. They're fascinating.